Here is a motion problem. Take a look at what it says. Shamika is going to fly from Rochester to LaGuardia. Of course, that's New York City. Then she's going to take a city bus, which goes all the way to 106th Street and Broadway. And now we know certain information. We really need to kind of categorize some of this. The first thing we really want to do is to go ahead and make a diagram. So let's see. Here she is in Rochester, and she's flying. Here she is on the plane. She's flying to New York City, and the rest of the way she's taking a bus. So here's my little diagram here, and I'm just showing that she's taking the plane, and then she's taking the bus. Notice it says we want to know how long she traveled on the plane. They're going to ask us in hours and in minutes. Now, which will we look at first? Because we're given miles per hour, and we're given hours, and we're given miles, that's all going to work to do the hours first. So we're going to do the hours first, and then later we'll change into the minutes. Alright, let's see what else we need to do. We have our diagram here. There's a little better diagram. And we're going to organize the information in the boxes. Here's my boxes. I'm going to start by the two types of travel. Of course, there's the plane and the bus. And I like to put the rate in right away. Let's see what we know about the rate. The plane is going 520 miles per hour, so there's the rate of my plane. And the bus is going 20 miles an hour, 20 miles per hour, so that's the rate of the bus. So I have my two rates there. Now all along there's the background formula, which is distance equals rate times time. And that's important because of course this is really fueling our whole problem, but it's also important because it's telling us that we're going to do rate times time. We have the rate, so what we need next is the time, because we're going to be doing the column with the rate and the column of the time. We're going to multiply those together to get our distance. So we plug in our time. Now what do we know about the time? Let's see. Total travel time is 2 hours. But we don't really know how long on the plane and how long on the bus. We don't really know the time on the plane or the time on the bus. That's part of what we have to find out here. So we do need to use variables for the unknown items. So I'm going to say she spends X hours on the plane, and there's nothing to say that they're the same, so I'm going to have to use another variable and say she travels Y hours on the bus. Our last column is going to be the product, and when we say product, we're talking about distance. That's the product of rate times time. So we know what we need to put in our last column there is distance. Now to make your entry in the last column, ignore the words in the problem above. We're going to just forget about these words and just multiply straight across. So I'm going to do my rate times my time. So for the plane, I get a distance of 520x. That's for my rate times time. And for the bus, I'm also going to do rate times time. So the distance from my bus is 20 times y, and I'm just multiplying across, applying distance equals rate times time. Everything's nicely organized now in our boxes. The next thing we need to do is to write equations. And the diagram is often helpful. So in my boxes I have the distance of the plane and the distance of the bus. So for the plane our distance is 520x miles. That came from here. And for the bus, our distance is 20 y miles. What do we know about the total distance? Well, it actually tells you right here, the total distance is 440 miles. And that gives us an equation. Our 520x, that's the distance of the plane, plus 20y, that's the distance of the bus, altogether is 440 miles. So we have a nice equation right there. Notice if we have two variables, and here they are, the x and the y, two variables, we need two equations. So let's look for another equation here. Now notice that x and y are the time of the plane and the bus, And back up here, although we didn't know each time, we do know the total time is 2 hours. And that gives us another equation. Can you see what this is? X plus y equals 2. And that's very nice because I have two equations and two unknowns. Various ways to solve this, but one way is going to be take my second equation. I could subtract x from both sides to give me y equals 2 minus x. There's my 2 minus x, and I'm going to replace the y in the second equation with 2 minus x. That's how I'm going to solve that. This is using substitution. Again, you could use a different method. If you have a different method in mind, try your method. See if you come to the same answer. So here we go. I have rewritten this second equation as y equals 2 minus x. I have replaced the y in my first equation with 2 minus x. We're ready to continue to solve this equation. Now we'll need to distribute the 20 or multiply through. That will be my next step in the process of solving this equation. And you can see that here. 20 times 2 gave me 40, and the 20 times the negative x is negative 20x. For our next step, we're going to collect like terms, so we'll add these two together, or combine these two, and we're also going to subtract 40 from both sides of the equation. So that's a couple of steps. You can go ahead and try that on your own. See if you come down to this spot with 500x equals 400. That's the result of a couple of steps. Now to solve for x, I'm going to divide by the coefficient in front of that x, and I come out to x equals, well, if I reduce that to a fraction, that's 4/5. Or for those of you who prefer a decimal, that will be 0.8. And you can use either one, the fraction or the decimal here. Now I do need to find y, and in order to find y, remember, y is 2 minus x. So I'm going to say y equals 2 minus, but now I'm going to put in 0.8. That gives me y equals 1.2, and I have both x and y. We still need to write our answer, and we need to be sure to answer the question asked. Also, we make sure we use the correct units. Now, what is the question asked here? Well, here it is. How long did you travel on the plane? How long did you travel on the bus? And we need to answer in hours, and we need to answer in minutes. As we mentioned earlier, these answers are in hours. These are hours. So we have part of our answer. We know how long she traveled on the plane and on the bus in hours. We need to change to minutes. To do that, just as 1 hour is 60 minutes, 4/5 of an hour is 4/5 times 60, or you could do 0.8 times 60. In either case, you should come out with 48, and that's the number of minutes that she's on the plane. Now for the bus, we're going to multiply 1.2 times 60, or if you were dealing with the fractions, remember we had 6/5 and multiply that times 60. Either way, you're going to come out with the 72 minutes, and that's how long she's sitting on that bus going from LaGuardia to 106th Street. We've now changed from hours, these are the hours, to minutes. We're really ready to write our final answer here, and there it is. And this concludes our video with one motion example on it.